There comes a moment in every human life when one finally begins to understand that peace is not something granted by fortune, nor something negotiated with the world, but something forged from clarity. And clarity begins with a simple question: what is mine, and what is not? What belongs to my influence, and what belongs to the endless swirl of events that will move with or without my permission? Most people live as if everything belongs to them. The reactions of others, the outcomes of their efforts, the pace of time, the decisions that arise from other minds. They carry the weight of the sky, as if their shoulders were built for it. They stay awake at night, wrestling with storms that never asked for combat, believing that perhaps with enough personal force, they can turn the winds in their favor. But there is a different path, a quieter one, where the struggle softens, not because life becomes gentler, but because the individual becomes wiser. And that wisdom begins with separating what we control from what we don't. The world is full of people who spend their days trying to correct the behaviors of those who do not want to be corrected. They give their energy to convincing minds already made up, to controlling outcomes already in motion, to rewriting stories already written. They believe that if they push hard enough, speak loudly enough, or care intensely enough, they can change the course of another person's will. Yet the world has never promised such a power. The human mind is an autonomous realm. Opinions, emotions, impulses, judgments, all belong to the one who houses them, not to the observer looking in. If someone misunderstands you, that misunderstanding lives in their world, shaped by their experiences, not yours. If someone resents you, their resentment grows from roots you cannot see. If someone refuses to see your worth, the clouded lens belongs to their vision, not your value. Still, many exhaust themselves begging others to see clearly. They plead for fairness, respect, recognition, and reciprocity as though those qualities were debts that could be collected on demand. But those things are not within your control. They are gifts when freely given, but they cannot be extracted from the unwilling. What is within your control is your own character, your own choice, your own response, your own discipline. It is astonishing how much of life becomes lighter when one recognizes this. Instead of trying to manage the judgments of others, you return to managing your own intentions. Instead of trying to guarantee outcomes, you return to guaranteeing effort. Instead of trying to manipulate circumstances, you return to mastering yourself. The world could turn upside down, but your inner compass points only to what is yours: your thoughts, your actions, your speech, your principles, your calm. Everything else, praise, blame, fortune, misfortune, weather, timing, destiny, the hearts of others, belongs to the realm outside your command. And once you acknowledge that division, you do not become powerless. In fact, you become the opposite. You become focused. Imagine the mental energy you reclaim when you stop fighting the currents of human behavior. The anger fades when you accept that others will choose their path, regardless of your expectations. The frustration drains away when you accept that outcomes are not guaranteed by how much you desire them. The bitterness dissolves when you understand that fairness is a human structure, not a universal law. Peace grows where resistance used to live, not the peace of avoidance or passivity, but the peace of mastery. Mastery over what truly belongs to you. And that is a rare strength. There are individuals who spend their whole lives attempting to predict the future. They read the signs, search for assurances, and demand certainty before daring to move. But the future is not one of the things you control, and the demand for certainty is the quickest path to immobility. If a person waits for conditions to be perfect, they will watch their life pass them by. Action belongs to you, outcomes do not. Effort belongs to you, results do not. Courage belongs to you, guarantees do not. The attempt to control what lies beyond your reach destroys your ability to influence what actually lies within it. How many people have abandoned their purpose because the timeline did not unfold the way they imagined? How many have surrendered their discipline because reward did not arrive on their schedule? How many have walked away from something meaningful because the world did not give confirmation fast enough? They confuse the delay of results with the absence of impact. But the one who understands what is truly theirs remains steady. They plant the seed, knowing that weather is not theirs to command. They build the foundation knowing that the timing of opportunity is not theirs to arrange. They speak the truth knowing that the ears of the listener belong to the listener. They strive with integrity because integrity itself is already a victory. When you focus on what is within your domain, you cannot be defeated, not by rejection, not by delay, not by temporary setbacks. For defeat only touches those who measure success by what lies beyond their control. Consider how much emotional suffering comes from the illusion of ownership. Ownership over how others treat you, over how life unfolds, over how people perceive you, over whether someone stays or leaves, over whether circumstances align with your hopes. People feel betrayed when someone changes, wounded when someone walks away, offended when someone criticizes them, shaken when life disrupts their plans. But in truth, none of these things ever belonged to them. You cannot lose what was never yours to control. It is only the illusion of possession that creates pain. When you release the expectation that others should move according to your wishes, disappointment loses its strength. When you stop insisting that life must follow your script, frustration loses its place. When you realize that your worth is not defined by external validation, insecurity loses its power. Freedom begins with letting go of the false ownership you've been clinging to. But letting go is not the same as indifference. Stoic calm is not emotional numbness. It is emotional maturity. It is the discipline to feel fully without surrendering your clarity. It is the strength to care without trying to control. It is the wisdom to act with purpose, without demanding the universe reward you for it. It is the courage to walk forward without needing the ground to announce itself before each step. When you stop gripping what is not yours, your hands become free to shape what is. Human relationships become healthier when you practice this separation. Instead of trying to control a partner's loyalty, you maintain your own honesty. Instead of forcing someone to appreciate you, you continue to live with dignity. Instead of demanding someone change, you embody the example. You become steady in a world full of emotional turbulence. And this steadiness does not make you cold. It makes you clear. You begin to understand that you are responsible for how you show up, how you love, how you speak, how you choose. But you are not responsible for how others receive it. Their reaction belongs to them. Your intention belongs to you. Many people carry the emotional burden of trying to manage the opinions of the world. They second-guess their choices because someone might disapprove. They hide their ambitions because someone might criticize. They downplay their achievements because someone might feel threatened. They rehearse conversations in their minds, trying to engineer the perfect impression. Yet the world's judgment is one of the great examples of what lies outside your control. People will interpret your actions through the filter of their own fears, biases, insecurities, and experiences. You could speak with absolute clarity, and someone will still misunderstand. You could act with complete kindness, and someone will still resent you. You could live with total integrity, and someone will still doubt you. And none of it is your burden to carry. Your task is not to control perception, but to control authenticity. To be rooted in who you are regardless of how the world responds. There is greater freedom in living honestly than in living agreeably. Those who seek universal approval are condemned to eternal conflict, for the world is too varied to ever unanimously validate a single path. But those who seek alignment between action and principle find peace, even when misunderstood. Fortune is another area where clarity changes everything. People spend lifetimes trying to manipulate circumstances that are, by nature, unpredictable. Wealth, health, opportunity, timing, success. These things can be influenced, but never fully commanded. A person can plan meticulously and still face unexpected obstacles. A person can work tirelessly and still encounter misfortune. Life owes no guarantees, but how one responds to fortune and misfortune lies squarely within their control. Strength is not proven by the absence of adversity, but by the consistency of one's character in the presence of it. The winds of life may shift without warning, but your inner posture can remain upright. The mind becomes powerful when it no longer panics at what it cannot command. When you understand that external events are not personal, you stop feeling targeted. When you understand that challenges are part of the nature of existence, you stop being surprised by difficulty. When you understand that loss is inevitable, you stop clinging to impermanent things. And when you understand that uncertainty is woven into every future moment, you stop demanding predictability. Fear loses its grip when you stop expecting life to behave according to your plans. There is profound resilience in focusing solely on what you control: your effort, your discipline, your mindset, your values, your interpretation of events. Two people may face the same hardship, yet one collapses while the other grows. The difference is not in the event, but in the response. Hardships do not break people. The belief that they should not exist is what breaks people. When you accept that difficulty is part of the human journey, you no longer feel wronged by it. You feel prepared. You feel capable. You feel steady. The same principle applies to emotions. Many believe that emotions simply happen to them, that they are passengers on a wild horse with no reins. But emotions are influenced by judgments, and judgments are within your control. If you interpret an event as catastrophic, fear follows. If you interpret it as offensive, anger follows. If you interpret it as unfair, resentment follows. But if you interpret it as neutral, or better yet, as an opportunity, your emotional state transforms. This is not emotional suppression. It is emotional intelligence. You do not deny your feelings, you understand them. You do not bury your reactions, you guide them. And that guidance is a form of self-sovereignty that few ever develop. People often ask, how can I stop stressing over everything? The answer is disarmingly simple. Stop claiming ownership of things that were never yours. If someone disrespects you, you control whether you absorb it or rise above it. If circumstances shift, you control whether you adapt or resist. If setbacks come, you control whether you learn or quit. Stress arises when the mind tries to govern the external world instead of governing itself. Anxiety arises when the mind demands certainty from a world that does not offer it. Peace arises when the mind relinquishes that demand. Even time is something you do not control. You do not command its pace. You cannot slow the seconds nor accelerate the hours. You cannot bring back what has passed nor guarantee what will come. Time moves independently of your desire, but how you use your time, that belongs entirely to you. Whether you squander it or invest it, whether you waste it in worry or devote it to purpose, whether you linger in regret or act with intention, these choices are yours every single day. Life is not measured by the hours you are given, but by what you choose to build within them. The same clarity transforms ambition. Many hesitate to pursue a dream because they fear failure. But failure is simply an external result, and results are not within your control. What is within your control is the decision to begin, the discipline to continue, and the resilience to rise when obstacles appear. Success is meaningful only when it reflects the integrity of the effort behind it. When ambition is rooted in external reward, it becomes fragile. When ambition is rooted in internal excellence, it becomes unbreakable. And perhaps the greatest area of this teaching lies in acceptance. Not passive acceptance, but empowered acceptance. Acceptance that the world operates according to forces beyond your authority. Acceptance that others are free to choose their actions, just as you are free to choose your responses. Acceptance that life unfolds according to a rhythm that may not match your expectations. Acceptance that the only true domain you possess is your own mind. Acceptance that you are responsible for your actions, not the world's outcomes. This form of acceptance brings stability. Stability brings clarity. Clarity brings strength. Strength brings peace. And peace makes a person unshakable in a world that shakes everyone. There is a quiet revolution that happens within a person when they finally stop trying to bend the world to their expectations and instead bend their expectations to the nature of the world. This is not defeat, it is liberation. It is the moment when a person stops asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and instead asks, "How can I rise to meet this?" The first question chains you to circumstance. The second question restores your power. And the power you regain is not the power to control outcomes, but the power to control your response, your interpretation, and your next action. That is the essence of freedom. Every day you are presented with moments that reveal the boundary between what is yours and what is not. Someone speaks harshly, and you feel the rush of emotion. The words are not yours, the reaction is. A plan falls apart, and frustration approaches. The plan was not yours, the resilience is. An injustice occurs, and anger tries to take root. The injustice was not yours, the integrity of how you move forward is. This is the discipline that transforms ordinary life into a training ground for inner strength. The world becomes the instructor, and every challenge becomes the lesson. And as you learn to separate the uncontrollable from the controllable, you find that the controllable is far richer than you ever realized. Many people trap themselves in emotional conflict because they confuse influence with control. You may influence someone through your presence, your kindness, your example, your words, or your consistency. But influence is not ownership. Influence can guide, but it cannot guarantee. Influence can inspire, but it cannot force. Influence can open a door, but it cannot make someone walk through it. The sooner you accept this, the more gracefully you navigate human relationships. You stop trying to rewrite someone's story and instead focus on writing your own with clarity. You stop trying to force understanding and instead embrace patience. You stop trying to win every argument and instead return to inner stability, knowing that truth does not depend on validation. When you understand what belongs to you, you also stop taking everything personally. Not every cold response is about you. Not every delay is an insult. Not every rejection is a judgment of your worth. People act from their own internal storms, their own fears, their own insecurities, their own blind spots. You may be nearby, but you are not the cause. And once you recognize this, your emotional world gains space. You stop reacting impulsively and begin responding intentionally. You stop carrying wounds that do not belong to you. You stop letting the behavior of others dictate your peace. There is a strength that emerges when you no longer fear the things you cannot command. People fear uncertainty because they try to hold it still. They fear change because they try to anchor it. They fear loss because they try to own what is inherently temporary. But when you stop resisting these truths, fear becomes smaller. Change becomes a companion rather than a threat. Uncertainty becomes a challenge rather than a curse. Loss becomes a reminder to cherish rather than a reason to despair. You begin to see the world as it is, not as you wish it to be. And this vision creates stability, even in chaos. Some believe that if they stop trying to control everything, their life will fall apart. But the opposite is true. When you release control over what you never commanded, your energy becomes concentrated on what you can actually shape. You live with more presence, more clarity, more intention. You become less scattered, less anxious, less reactive. You stop chasing every external disturbance and start cultivating your internal foundation. And when the foundation is strong, life's storms cannot uproot you. There is a calmness that grows inside someone who has learned this distinction, a calmness that does not depend on silence or isolation, but exists even in noise and movement, a calmness that resembles a still lake beneath the changing sky. The surface may ripple, but the depths remain steady. This is the calmness that comes from self-command. And self-command is not achieved by controlling the world, but by controlling the self. Every hardship you experience presents two tasks, the external task and the internal task. The external task is shaped by circumstance. It may involve solving a problem, enduring a difficulty, or navigating a challenge. The external task is not fully yours because outcomes vary. But the internal task is always yours, to remain disciplined in action, stable in thought, honorable in intention, and resilient in spirit. The internal task is where your power lies. Those who focus only on the external task suffer needlessly, for they attempt to control what cannot be controlled. Those who focus on the internal task gain strength, for they develop mastery over the one thing that can never be taken from them. People often say, "I feel powerless." But the truth is that no one is powerless as long as they still govern their own mind. You may lose possessions, relationships, opportunities, status, comfort, and even physical ability. But your ability to choose your attitude, your approach, your principles, and your perspective remains until your final breath. That is the last frontier of sovereignty, and it is the greatest one. Entire empires have crumbled, but a disciplined mind has remained unbroken. Entire societies have shifted, but a committed heart has remained steadfast. The person who commands themselves cannot be conquered. To live with this understanding is to walk through life with a lighter heart. Not because life becomes easier, but because you stop making it harder than it must be. You stop fighting battles that cannot be won. You stop demanding perfection from an imperfect world. You stop expecting permanence from temporary things. You stop searching for control where control does not exist. Instead, you refine your focus. You wake each day asking not what the world will give you, but what you will give to the world. You ask not how people will behave, but how you will behave. You ask not whether events will go your way, but whether you will go your way regardless of events. This is the kind of life that produces inner peace, not the peace of comfort or convenience, but the peace of responsibility, the peace of knowing that your energy is no longer wasted, the peace of knowing that your mind is no longer scattered, the peace of knowing that your focus is where it matters, the peace of understanding that you will face whatever comes with dignity, because dignity belongs to you, and nothing outside can take it without your consent. There is a moment in life when you realize that every time you tried to force something that wasn't yours to control, you suffered. Every time you tried to change someone who wasn't ready, you drained yourself. Every time you tried to guarantee an outcome that wasn't promised, you created anxiety. Every time you tried to rewrite a past event that could not be undone, you fed your own sorrow. And every time you tried to predict a future that could not be known, you fueled your own fear. This is the human pattern, wrestling with shadows, grasping at illusions, attempting to command things that obey no one. But clarity ends this cycle. Clarity allows you to step back from the chaos and see that life is not against you. You were simply fighting parts of it that were never meant to be held. You have been given a small but powerful domain: your choices, your values, your responses, your discipline, your attention, your mindset, your character. Everything outside that domain is the world's possession, not yours. When a person finally accepts this division, something extraordinary happens inside them. They begin to conserve their energy. They begin to protect their peace. They begin to see that much of what once troubled them had no right to live in their mind. They begin to recognize that most emotional wounds are caused not by events, but by resistance to events. And they begin to understand that the world is not peaceful, but they can be. Yet society conditions people to believe the opposite. It teaches them to control appearances so they can control opinions. It teaches them to control timings so they can control opportunities. It teaches them to control relationships so they can control security. It teaches them to control outcomes so they can control validation. As a result, many build their identity on unstable ground. They become fragile because what they depend on is outside their reach. They become reactive because everything threatens their illusion of control. They become anxious because the world refuses to move according to their script. But the person who lets go of what they cannot command becomes unshakable. They do not depend on things outside themselves for stability. They do not depend on approval for confidence, nor predictability for courage, nor perfection for peace. They anchor themselves in the only place where anchoring is possible within. And this anchoring is not a retreat from the world. It is the only way to engage fully with it. When you no longer fear what you cannot control, you become capable of action. When you no longer depend on external outcomes to validate your efforts, you become consistent. When you no longer fear uncertainty, you become adaptable. Some believe that acceptance means surrendering ambition, but acceptance is not the death of ambition. It is the purification of it. Ambition rooted in external reward is fragile. Ambition rooted in internal excellence is unstoppable. When you understand that you do not control results, you stop obsessing over them. You stop measuring your worth by them. Instead, you give your full attention to the work itself. You pour yourself into the process. You refine your skills, your patience, your resilience. You cultivate discipline, not because the world promises success, but because discipline is honorable in itself. You pursue mastery not because others will praise you, but because mastery is fulfilling. This way of living turns every day into a training ground for inner strength. When something goes wrong, you practice adaptability. When someone behaves poorly, you practice patience. When life delays your plans, you practice endurance. When you experience loss, you practice acceptance. Every challenge becomes an exercise in choosing who you will be. And the beauty of this training is that no external force can stop it. You do not need ideal conditions to practice courage. You do not need support to practice integrity. You do not need certainty to practice resilience. Your growth belongs entirely to you. Many people ask, how do I stop caring what others think? The answer is not to eliminate caring, it is to eliminate attachment. Care, but do not cling. Do your best, but do not demand approval. Act with integrity, but do not expect recognition. Live honestly, but do not expect applause. The opinions of others belong to them. They reflect their own experiences, not your truth. And when you understand this, judgment loses its power. You begin to walk with a quieter mind, because you are no longer performing for an audience that cannot define you. The same clarity applies to relationships. You cannot control who stays or who leaves, who appreciates you or who overlooks you, who grows with you or who grows away from you. People choose based on their own inner world. Their choices are not measurements of your worth. What you control is the way you love, the honesty you bring, the boundaries you set, the respect you offer, the respect you demand, and the dignity with which you carry yourself. You are responsible for your half of every relationship, not the other half. This understanding protects you from unnecessary suffering. It prevents you from chasing those who do not value what you bring. It prevents you from shrinking yourself to fit into spaces too small for who you are becoming. What you control is always enough for peace, but never enough for perfection. Peace does not require perfection, it requires clarity. And part of clarity is accepting that life will bring difficulties, not because you are cursed, but because difficulty is woven into the fabric of existence. No one moves through life without encountering loss, disappointment, misfortune, or injustice. But the one who understands what belongs to them does not crumble under these realities. They allow themselves to feel, but they do not allow themselves to fall. They experience pain, but they do not become it. They navigate adversity, but they do not surrender their dignity. In this way, you become a steady presence in an unstable world. You do not panic when circumstances shift. You do not crumble when plans collapse. You do not lose yourself when people change. Your foundation is not built on sand, it is built on self-command. And because of this, life can move around you without breaking you. Hardship may bend you, but it does not uproot you. Change may redirect you, but it does not diminish you. Uncertainty may surround you, but it does not invade your mind. When you finally embrace this path, you stop living reactively. You stop giving your power away to every inconvenience, every criticism, every setback, every emotion, every unpredictable moment. You start living intentionally. You choose your battles. You choose your attention. You choose your actions. You choose your values. You choose your peace. And these choices create a life that feels grounded, steady and free, even when the world is not.